Greetings and welcome to GRUNND PODCAST, a thing that you listen to if you like adventure games, art, literature, music, game development, and everything in between. And today it's cats, apparently. On our first full episode, I'm joined by Liviu, one of the creators of highly successful adventure game Gibbous. Now the team of Stuck in the Attic is working on their new project, Near-Mage, that promises to be so much more than your classic adventure game. We talk about writing, development, good things and bad things. And don't forget, GRUNND is surreal sci-fi narrative-driven adventure game where your choices matter. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Visit us at grund.com. It's a hub for everything new. These podcasts, lo-fi video episodes, direct links to our playable demo, and upcoming Kickstarter. Oh my god, so much work!
Virtually.
For a year, 2 years maybe even.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, something like that.
So, greetings from Latvia.
Hey, good to hear you.
Another... yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was saying, of course, lovingly, another second-rate European country.
Yeah, I guess. But look, like we're trying to do things, against all odds.
Yeah.
So and it's cool that people are starting to take notice. Yeah, don't worry. I mean, things are happening very slowly around here too. I keep getting told that we are very much the exception, that we're trying to do stuff. I mean, I don't know how the indie scene is over there, but here it's like 100 studios for 16 million or something.
Whoa.
I don't. Yeah, but that's. I mean, it's not good. It could be a lot. It could be a lot more.
Just last week, I called Latvia's fund for culture projects, and they said straight away that games not a culture. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah. So you guys don't have grants either, right?
No, zero.
Yeah. This is something that I rant and rave about to anyone who will listen to me, because you only need to look at like countries that are doing better, like like Sweden and like Scandinavian countries and Germany. I was just I don't know if you saw, I posted it on Facebook, but like there's just one land in Germany that has 3 million euros funding for indie games. This is just like one, I think it was just Bavaria. I'm not exactly sure where.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we wouldn't have to stress out with investors and publishers and Kickstarters and that kind of stuff. But
well,
what can you do? Also, just a disclaimer: if you hear weird stuff in the background, it's my cats going crazy. We only live in a one-room apartment, so I can't really shut them off anywhere, and I need to keep the door to the balcony open because otherwise they're gonna start scratching at it and distract me. So just saying, if there's weird noises, that's the explanation.
it's all good. I have one black cat as well.
Oh, cool.
It's good. So I have written down some questions here. 7, basically. I tried to not ask you which is your favorite color and that sort of thing. Also, there won't be any your favorite game question, I think. But yeah, I read that you were a 3-person team stuck in attic. Has it changed because this new project of yours looks quite bigger and more demanding than Gibbous was?
Well, it has changed and it hasn't changed. I mean, it has changed in the sense that we have changed one team member, but there's still just 3 of us. So our the programmer that we made the first game with, that we made Gibbous with, he realized. I mean, he sort of realized that he didn't want to make indie games anymore because it was too stressful, and so we parted on very good terms. and we got Chris. So we're not 100% Romanian studio anymore, in a way. Not that it matters that much, but we got Chris, who is Italian. He's from Naples, and we were actually very fortunate to find him because once our first programmer was going, it's pretty difficult to find programmers that are willing to to dive into this kind of project because first and foremost, I think everyone knows programmers can get paid a lot better working on like in a corporate job or something.
Hell yeah.
You can't compete with that. So we were very, very fortunate to find Chris, and not only were we fortunate to find him, but he's he's an amazing person. We became really, really close friends, and he's also a connoisseur of the genre and very, very much passionate about this. So basically, we hired him as as a friend and as a fellow adventure game aficionado first, and as a programmer and game designer second. And to get to your question, actually, because that was a little bit of a detour there. It is much more ambitious. Yeah, Near-Mage is much more ambitious. But then again, we're sort of dealing with it in a little bit of a different way, in the sense that, for example, the first game, I handled all the game design and like most of the writing. I had a little bit of a few discussions with Kami, our other artist, and my partner, regarding the story and everything. But mostly, I have to own up to all its flaws and everything because I sort of did it all myself. Not out of ego or anything. It just we just wanted to split everything up into equal parts so things could get better. But it wasn't necessarily a good thing. And now the good part is that we're all contributing to game design and also to the ideas. And I'm also co-writing everything with Kami, and Chris also has an input. So it doesn't feel like a project that's split into three parts and just we're working individually on it. It feels very much like a cohesive thing that we're all working on at the same time. And also, not to cast any shade on our former programmer, but we've made a lot more progress in the year that we've been working on Near-Mage than I'd say maybe twice as much progress than we had in a year on Gibbous. So I think this is like one of those things with the bands where you change a band member and suddenly there's a lot of there's chemistry and everything is happening much faster. It is also ambitious, not just in scope, but also because we are straying away from the classic point and click formula. Because that was one of the things that felt a little bit less satisfying when we made Gibbous. Because I mean, you know adventure games very well too. I mean, that they're pretty formulaic, right? I mean, it's a formula.
It's hard to stray away from it sometimes.
Yep, exactly. And not only hard, but it is a little bit intimidating, especially if you're at your first game. The point and click adventure classic adventure formula is sort of like this warm blanket that you cuddle up in, and you feel safe because you know that so many games have used it before, and what you need to do is add your own puzzles and your own story and your own characters. And it felt good and it works and people know what it is. But this time around we wanted to shake things up a little bit and sort of
you have to grow to one point.
We wanted to it's super fun, appealing to the hardcore players of this genre, but at the same time we didn't want it to be limited to that, because I think as adventure game players, and I'm curious what you think about this, we sort of have this expectance from people to already know what to do when they fire up a game, but that only an adventure game, but that only happens with people who have played an adventure game before, because we were showing the game at a games convention that wasn't adventure oriented, and we had people who like they'd pick something up and then they had no idea that it went into the inventory, and all these conventions that we're very much familiar with, but non-adventure game players are not.
Yeah, actually, yeah, tutorial was the last thing I did, because I saw some people playing the game, and just I kept wondering, how do you don't know what to do here?
Yep, that's the thing. I mean, it's fun because Gibbous did well with the adventure game crowd, but at the same time, it can reach a wider audience if only you make it just a little bit more friendly, and I don't know. It's worth at least trying, because it's like a genre of games that could reach out and be fun for much more people.
So I understood you are making a Near-Mage already for a year from last summer.
Yep. Yeah. In secrecy.
Yeah. The question is, you already mentioned that you switched to another programmer. That's probably a tough stuff to do, because I know that after prototype I had to switch to another artist, and I was scared, because everybody says that they can do something, but no, they can't. And I got very lucky, as you as well. What are maybe other things that you have learned during the development process of both games so far? Those big ones that you did not expect, maybe that.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, there were a lot, and I'm not sure whether they were necessarily, up to, because of changing team a little bit, but also because of this whole changing of the philosophy of the game, who it's reaching out, who it's targeting. There were a lot of different things. Like, for example, with Gibbous, we started showing it. We all just perceived it very differently, because with Gibbous we started showing it as early as we had anything. Like, we slowly put the idea out there, and people were sort of aware of it, like marginal, but like we weren't keeping anything secret or anything. And then so when we went to Kickstarter back in 2016, people were sort of aware about it, and they knew that it was about a talking cat and all like that. Like, it was a sort of different way of reaching a little bit of awareness in the genre.
16.
And this time around,
oh my God. You said 2016, and I'm just.
Yes, a long time ago. These things take so much time to make. Like, it takes a long time for things to develop. Yeah, and this time around we wanted to, it was also a little bit scarier, because we only announced the game once we were already working on it for a year. And that's not necessarily a smart thing to do, because ideally what you want to do is, before investing a lot of time and effort and money into something, is put it out there and see how people react to it, right? That's why people go to Kickstarter, for example, and that's why you show it off as early as possible. We sort of went against our own wisdom of knowing that you have to show it early, but that's because we were sort of maybe a little bit cocky, but certainly sort of confident that people would react well to it, and they reacted well. Because it's not a wise thing to just work on something in secrecy and then go, hey, here it is, because you might be very surprised by people going, oh, no, this is not what we wanted from you guys. And this was a big risk that we were actually running, because people were just expecting a sequel to our first game, especially because we sort of, spoiler alert, we sort of ended it on a little bit of a cliffhanger. It was a very divisive end for a video. But then again, a lot of adventure games end on in very divisive ways. And I remember Ron Gilbert said that something to the effect of, I want people to talk about the ending. If it's it can be a good ending, but then nobody will talk about it. And it's better to, it's art. It's supposed to spark up conversation. And I guess that's what we did.
I'm on board,
Yeah, absolutely. We took a little bit of a risky route, but it paid off.
I don't know, maybe it's connected, maybe it's not. The next question. Was there any features that you wanted to see in the last game and decided not to do and brought them in this time around? And maybe some features that you actually said no to now as well?
I was expecting for that to happen sometime during the development of the first game, but actually, because we were so laser focused on delivering a game that, the mechanics of which everyone who played adventure games was familiar with, that's the reason that I didn't even think about it. That's the weird thing about working again in such a formulaic niche like adventure games. So my mind wasn't even going in that direction of innovating or adding new stuff. It was just focused on, creating atmosphere and characters and everything. And that was fun, but I guess, creatively, I was really itching. Not just me, we were all itching to actually do something that feels like actual, little bit of actual game design. I'm not saying that there isn't game design that went into Gibbous, but just trying to think out of the box, and that's one of the reasons that we thought about doing a direct sequel to Gibbous first, but then we realized that we really wanted to try something new. We wanted to step out of the box and do something fresh. And that's why, and that also meant, like expanding the universe, not necessarily doing a direct sequel, and also coming up with all these new fun ways, like reinterpreting the inventory, this also stems from differences between the game. The first game is a very avowed comedy game. That's how we started out. It becomes a lot more serious as you progress through the story. That was sort of the point. And the second one, we don't bill it as an adventure, as a comedy adventure game at all. So it's this whole thing about adventure games where you're always carrying a weird assortment of stuff in your pocket, which works very well with comedy games because you just put something, and we even lampshade it. Like there's a part where the character says, like, how do I carry so much crap without a backpack? But that works well for comedic games, but Near-Mage is it's not a comedy. It's like a proper adventure game. And that's a kind of interesting challenge that we came up with, was like, okay, this is a game about a girl who is studying to become a mage, right? So how do we not give up on inventory, but at the same time make everything feel right within, with the theme? With adventure games, when they go modern, they just sort of ditch the inventory and they just become choice and consequence games, which is fun. It's fine, but we wanted the gameplay to have a little bit more depth than that. And that's why we thought, hey, we don't have to ditch the inventory, but the inventory can be spells instead of just objects that you carry around. I like to set these leitmotifs, I guess you would call them, when making a game. Like with Gibbous, it was warm and dark, right? And so everything had to be warm and dark. That was something that we wanted to permeate, like through the music, the graphics, the story, the atmosphere. That was like the red line through everything. Everything needs to be warm and dark. And this time around, we decided, like, theme is king. Like, theme is the most important things. And how do we design this thing so that it always makes sense related to the theme? And that's how we came up with the spells as inventory, and then we iterated from them. Okay, but how do you get a spell? Well, you study and you learn it. But do you learn the spell already? That doesn't sound like a lot of fun. No, you have to learn three smaller spells that we call near spells first, and then you can combine them into a spell. Oh, but wait a minute, that means that you can have different spells. That means that you can actually populate your inventory in a very customized manner, and so that leads to replayability, because depending on what classes you choose, you can study different things and so come up with different ingredients for these spells. And I know it all, like, it, as you can tell, it gets more and more complicated, and we're trying to keep a lid on that so that the design doesn't blow up in our face. But eventually, I think we sort of came. I think we managed to strike a balance between complexity and easy to understand. Not necessarily when I explain it in a podcast, but hopefully when you play the game, it's gonna make sense.
I have actually then twofold question here, because I wanted to touch the spells as well. First part of the question would be going back to development work, animations, because I imagine you have to do 1 million custom animations. For each spell. I have no idea how much there are. I want to ask percentage, but probably that wouldn't be a clever way to go. How time consuming is it? It's probably, I don't know, about 30% of the work.
Yeah, it's hard to. You're right. It's pretty hard to put into percentages, but it's a lot of work. Like, there are in the spells that you can have in your inventory in one run of the game are, I mean, they're in the tens. Not hundreds, but they're in the tens. And so consider the fact that we're probably going to have like custom animations for every situation that you can use each spell in. And on top of all this, since we're still talking about animation, we're doing the whole cosmetic DLC thing where you can change your clothes. And since everything we animate is frame by frame, that also means that's a lot of animating different sets of clothes in different positions. But I mean, look, this is a lot of work, like a lot of work. But me and Kami, and frame by frame animation is what we live for. We love working on it. So
since you love it, it's good. That's
absolutely. Okay. It's one of the highlights of the game. I mean, we love working on everything else on the game. But the trick here is also that I'm not saying that we're the best animators out there, but we're really fast. Like, we've coming from a sort of a commercial, we used to make like animated videos before jumping into game dev. And I can just give you an example. Like, we made a video for the Pixies, and they were like, you guys can do anything with this song, but it needs the video needs to be done in 1 month.
Yesterday.
And yes, like literally, yeah, like 1 month in frame by frame. Like, in animation, that's almost like saying yesterday. And okay, like, we had a little bit of a bigger team, but we managed to deliver, and so we're very, very accustomed to animating really, really fast. Not losing sight of quality, but we're pretty fast when it comes to that. We have a lot of experience. There's other scarier things than that, like how people are going to react to the whole spells things instead of inventory. And are we going to be able to actually reach out to an audience that is larger than just your adventure game fans? Because I remember Ron Gilbert being very when they launched Thimbleweed Park, he was very adamant about reaching out to people who weren't adventure gamers, and eventually he sort of said that he failed. But then again, that was a very much classic style adventure, and not that we're trying to step away from that necessarily, but we don't want it to, like, something that was good in a way, but I sort of got tired of hearing was whenever we showed our first game, Gibbous, everyone was like, oh, this is very old school, I like it, this is very old school. And yeah, in a way it is, because it's like our first game is like a love letter to the games of the 90s, but at the same time we tried to make it look and feel as modern as possible within those confines. So with Near-Mage, we're trying to step even farther away from that. Like, we're not saying classic point and click love letter. It's not actually anymore a love letter to anything. It's just we're trying to do our thing and trying to make it as modern and as appealing as possible.
Well, classic point and clicks usually also have a pretty straightforward story. Not many choices, and actually, we can combine the question about a number of animations with. I presume that it's also then when the choice of spell happens, there's also a narrative choice happens. What happens to another guy or whatever, and how he responds. Was that a challenge? And is this your first delve into such a branched story? Because I presume there's a lot of branches in artisy.
Yep, you're right. Yeah, there are. Yeah, that's actually a very tricky thing, and it's a trap that you can set yourself up for, and and develop the game for the next 20 years, because there's so many branching options that everything dominoes into everything else, and then you just keep designing the game forever and you never get to finish it.
You already forgot the first branch while you're working on the fifth, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, we are. I mean, it is true in a sense that every time you do something, the story branches. But the thing is that there's a difference between the individual story of the character or the situation that you're affecting and the bigger overarching story. So the way we're doing that is not every spell that you cast is going to affect your own story. It with some exceptions, like we're still working on this, so it's nothing is set in stone. But with some exceptions, in a way or other, everything pretty much plays out the same way every time. There are certain important branches, but we kept that at a minimum so that the game, so that the story would make sense. Because this time around, we're trying to go with a much clearer, easier to understand story. But our gambit here is that you start caring or being interested in the fate of the characters that your spells affect the life of, whether you like them or dislike them. And so you will see, the reverberations of your actions, like the effects of your choice and consequence farther down the line, but not to an extent that also complicates the main story.
The next question is more about also about writing, but not about choices, about how do you write characters? How much time and effort you put in those little details, and what have you learned? What's your way of doing things? How do you come up with the backstories for characters and as such?
That's an interesting story. Well, it's pretty different between Gibbous and Near-Mage, because with Gibbous, basically, with the exception of the first, of the main characters that do have a little bit of that do evolve a little bit, like they change throughout the story. Most of the characters in Gibbous, since it's a comedy, are they're comedic stereotypes, basically, most of them. So I sort of got away as a writer with that, because people don't really, when they're playing a silly cartoony comedy, they don't really expect like character development from these guys who are basically like comedic relief, most of them, not all of them, but like most of them. So it was much easier the first time around, but it also felt like cheating a little bit. Like, the characters work. The characters worked, but there were other than the main players in the story, are pretty easy to write, because the only thing that I really had to focus on was, making them, making sure that they get a giggle out of the player. And at the same time, there was also like a big cheat that I was employing with the first game, and that is that basically the first game is like a greatest hits of Lovecraft's favorite writings of mine, and I've come up with a story that sort of weaves between them. So I guess if you're a big fan of Lovecraft, you're really going to enjoy that. If not, it might seem a little weird. So yeah, one of the tricks is that a lot of the types in Gibbous are like parodies of either like types of characters from Lovecraft's work or actual characters from his work. So that was a little bit of a cheat that I employed there. But again, that's an overtly comedic game, and I sort of got away with that a lot easier. But in the second game, like in Near-Mage, since it's not that comedic anymore, and we're sort of going for not a serious tone, but it's like I hesitate to call it a drama. We'll still have humor, but basically what we're doing is trying to have characters with a lot more depth and everything. And what I do is I draw a lot from what I read, from the stuff that I read. Like I mostly read. I mostly read fantasy, grimdark fantasy, steampunk. So yeah, I'm mostly into escapist literature, but I really prefer the one that actually has depth to it. So I'm not just satisfied with like escaping into worlds that are shallow and with badly written characters. And so basically what I do is I try to pay attention to the characters that I really feel like empathize with while I'm reading a book, and trying to figure out what like the little details that make them feel believable. And I guess there's a little bit of I guess naturalism you would call it, like little things that ring very true about characters that I didn't really concern myself with when writing Gibbous. And this time around, I'm really focusing on like what makes the characters stick. Why did they become this way? And it's fun because it's really fun to take a character that's like like a werewolf or something, and think about their problems, and not have them tell you directly why they are the way they are, but having the player deduce that. Sky's the limit. Actually, time's the limit more, like, because it was it's pretty. It's a world that you really want to populate, and have a lot of believable characters milling around that you can interact with. But at the same time, we sort of promised we'd get this game done by 2023, and while that might seem like far into the future, with the amount of work that we're setting ourselves up for, it's really not that far.
No, it totally doesn't. You mentioned before that you're trying to make Near-Mage kind of easy to understand, easy to follow. Mm-hmm. What do you actually mean by that?
From a story perspective, I tried to do a pretty ambitious thing with Gibbous, where I took, again, my favorite Lovecraft stories and set them up in an order that would sort of make sense for the player, and at the same time trying to follow, I think, 3 different storylines, and it all sort of became a little bit confusing for the player. I think especially if you're not a fan of Lovecraft. And also, I wasn't doing my best to make the story make a lot of sense. I was just hoping that
that sounded good.
Yeah, I know. Look, I mean, I have to admit, like, I'm not one of those people who are very much concerned. This is probably not a wise thing to confess as a writer, but I'm not one of those people who are very much concerned with, the plot has to make this much sense, and it has to follow these strict rules, blah, blah, blah. At least I wasn't. I was very much relying on atmosphere, and also I bit up more than I could chew with all the different, different plot lines that were going in parallel, and especially, I think it's much more difficult with games than with movies or TV series, because with a movie, like, you watch it, it's 2 hours, you get everything, it's not a problem. And with a TV series, if you watch 3 episodes and then you come back to it, you always can. They usually have like a previously on whatever. Mm-hmm. But with games, sadly, with most games, it's not like that. And this is one of the reasons that we are discussing having a previously on feature on Near-Mage, and I wish we had it with Gibbous, or some kind of way of tracking what's been happening, because I can, I watch streamers play Gibbous every once in a while. Thankfully, like, there's relatively many of them still playing it, and I see them jumping in, and they're going, a lot of the times they're going like, oh my god, what were we doing? Like, there's so many characters, so many plot lines, I can't remember what we were doing. And so that's a failing on our part. And also it's also up to the way that people play games, you know, because they rarely ever sit down and beat like 8 to 10 hour game in one sitting. So
We are actually playing Witcher now with my son, which is good actually. That gave me that idea as well. When the game loads, the Witcher has
right, like the little comic
narrator,
book style.
yeah, and the narrator
Yes.
tells you
Tells you, yeah.
the main quest basically. So that's one way to go.
That's really good. Yes, 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 yes. You see, like, it's these types of things that I guess they speak of experience. You know, this wasn't something that had occurred to us because the story made a lot of sense to me, but I never actually thought about the way people play these things. And like, I'm immersed in the world of Gibbous and its story, like, for years, for years on end, for like 8 to 10 hours a day. Of course, I know where everything is and how everything happens, but you're missing out on the perspective of the player. And that's also one of the things that I mean when I'm saying that, we want this to be as easy to understand and perceive as possible. So yeah, a feature that's exactly what we were having, where we're thinking of having, like, a feature, like maybe like an optional feature. I don't know about a loading screen, but maybe like an optional feature where, when you fire it up, is like, do you want to be reminded of everything that's happened so far? And that could also include all your branching choices, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. First we need to see how we can make all that happen, because there's also some limitations. We're working with Unity and Adventure Creator, and so there are it's a great tool, like it really helps. And Chris, our programmer, is always in contact with Chris, the creator of the utility of Adventure Creator. And it's a great tool, but it also has its limitations. And we customized it a lot for Gibbous, and we're customizing it a lot for Near-Mage. We'll see.
I have bought it 2 years ago and never used. I got afraid that every software once in a while updates, and if Adventure Creator updates and if there's some customization, it breaks, and those are problems I don't want to have.
I hear that happens with or used to happen with AGS a lot, with Adventure Game Studio. But the thing is, I don't know, I'm not a programmer, so I don't really know about these. Like, I only know them tangentially from what Chris tells me. But Adventure Creator is something that's created by one guy who's also very passionate about these games, and he's very responsive. Like, he responds to. I mean, Chris has told me that. Chris has told me that Chris, the guy from Adventure Creator, has actually created patches, based on the reports or the suggestions that he made himself. So that it's really cool when you see people that are so passionate about their product, as they should be.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's actually one of the things I tell over a beer to some people when our talks get really deep. Development people I have met so far are one of the best people I know. They are so open, so helpful, for no reason. They just want to help you. It's amazing. I'm really humbled about from this.
Absolutely, yeah, and especially like the adventure game community in general is super nice. Like, we since we're from a like Eastern European country where we don't really have a tradition or anything like that. Like, I think we were the first Romanian adventure game ever released. Not that it was hard to do. Not that it was hard to be that. But we started going to. I don't know if you've ever gone to Adventure X in London.
No. No.
Well, you should. I mean,
Wanted.
now it's obviously not happening this year either. But if somehow we get rid of Corona by next year, I definitely recommend you do that, because that's where we came in contact with, with basically the that's the fandom of the genre, and it's just it's like it's developers and just players, fans, streamers, translators, and it's just like a big family, and we became really really good friends, and we still talk like every week. But yeah, it's exactly what you're saying. A lot of people that are very, very, very fun and supportive and just helping each other. For example, we had a terrible, terrible translation, especially the Russian one, when we launched, and we got a lot of negative reviews because of that. And and we reached out to these guys that we met, at Adventure X. To Alex, who's our friend now, and he helped us out and saved our asses, basically. So it's nice to have like a supportive community, and it's just like it's very, very friendly, very welcoming, and I'm not sure that there are these types of tight-knit communities around other genres. I hope there are, but I'm very, very happy with the adventure game one.
Sure. You mentioned that beautiful thing that is happening to us now, Corona, and there's a lot of other good things in our world. What do you think about making some, I don't want to call them political statements, but opinion statements concerning real world within a games? Not maybe particularly your games, but overall. What do you think? Is it a good thing, bad thing? Depends.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I mean, ultimately, games are art, and art. I mean, there was always and always will be political art, but it really, I mean, it really depends on what you go to them for. I'm okay with politics in art. I don't mind it. I'm a huge fan of Rage Against the Machine, so, but
they are good.
It's not something that we're not really interested in doing that in games. Mostly because, especially when I play video games, I want to get away from I think it's the case with most people. They just want a little bit of escapism. They just want to get away from their problems, and I'm not sure that they want to be reminded about that.
They had enough.
Yeah, they had enough. But I am interested in touching on social problems, not necessarily political ones, and the ones that are very close to us. I guess as a studio, I could say, because it's all three of us, but especially me and Kami, it's related to animals, like animal welfare and all that kind of stuff. So I want us to somehow broach the subject and approach it, but at the same time, it's pretty tricky because you don't want to come across as beating people over the head with your opinions.
It's really easy to overdo. That's right.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I just don't. It would be fun to do it in a way that doesn't really tell you what that's the best part about it. That's when you sort of remind people of a problem and you make it very poignant, but at the same time you don't necessarily tell them what your opinion of it is, or you're not trying to push them one way or the other, but just sort of help with awareness, I guess.
Our best way to handle those things might be just to put another tip in a jar, not fill it full. Other people will do the rest. Also, tip. But
also, it's also interesting if you think about it, because games sort of also select their own audience, which is why it's interesting that we didn't really run into too many negative people as we started making games and interacting with the community and everything. And so if you make sort of, I don't know if I would call our games heartwarming, but they're definitely they're not too. I mean, they are a little bit dark, but they sort of select an audience that is into maybe more, I don't know, cartoony graphics, colorful graphics. Somehow we ended up with a public that sort of reflects us, people who are into animals, for example, like they're animal lovers, or they like cartoons a lot, or you just sort of select your own audience by what you're creating. And
Oh,
we're seeing. Sorry?
you guys ticked so many boxes. You actually, I think you've done the best you could. The best actually everything could happen for you. I think you did
Thanks.
a great job, man.
It's weird, because when we first wanted to make our first game, we got that that blank page anxiety. It's a little bit weird because I know people who have made their games that they had been dreaming of making since they were like 13 or 14. I don't know if you know Fabrice Cowcat, the guy who made Demetrios and is now making Brock.
Nah, no.
Well, anyway, that was his story, and I was amazed. If I recall correctly, I don't think I'm mistaken. I think it was him. And he said that he had this idea for an adventure game since he was basically a preteen, and then he ended up making it. And that's really, really cool that he managed to do that. But we didn't really have that. So when we decided to make a game, I knew that it was going to be like a point and click adventure, because it's sort of like a combination of the things that I love most, but I had no idea what it would be about. And basically what I did was sit down and think about all the things that I love and try to make just put them all together and try to make sense of it. And that's why there's a cat, and there's Lovecraft, and there's cartooniness, and there's like Romanian folklore, and all this kind of stuff that is completely disconnected, but I just sat down and tried to make sense of it. And that's, I guess the fact that I'm really passionate, and we're all really passionate about this kind of stuff, just clicked with people.
I totally understand you because I'm trying to do my stuff exactly the same as well. I'm doing only things I love, and bringing in the tones and vibes. Only I see passion. I feel passion for. It's actually.
Yeah. And people react to that I think that's the most fun about it, because it's very hard to reproduce that connection if you don't actually care that much about it.
It's actually that David Lynch, he talks about the catching a fish theory, or school.
Yeah, the way he gets ideas, right?
Yeah, and basically it's the same, because naturally ideas comes only from the place and you feel connected with. So, and if you take them, something will come out. So the same
exactly
stuff.
Yeah, and especially because if you go into this dreaming of making money or anything, it's not gonna work. It's just not gonna work. Also because it's a lot of work. You do game dev too. Just like the sacrifices and just how much work there is to be done. And I'm not saying that in the sense of, oh, I hope people understand the huge sacrifice and the blood, sweat, and tears, because I know a lot of people have it a lot worse, and they're stuck in dead-end jobs that they hate, or they have to do physical work or anything like that. I'm not complaining about it. It's something that we choose to do. It's just that it's a lot of work, and most people in this business of making indie games could probably be making a hell of a lot more money working in more productive, in more monetarily productive fields. But
Sure.
We just choose to do it because you wake up in the morning and you go to work with a smile on your face as opposed to a scowl.
It does give you quite a bit of gray hairs and bad times and worries, but in the end it's totally worth it. However the game does, I will be happy. Well,
right,
if I'm not on the street, of course. But,
yeah, and it also depends on where you come from, because we both me and Kami, at least, I'm not sure about Chris, we had the experience of working sort of in our domain, as in doing graphic design, but but the feeling that you don't belong there and you don't really care about it's weird because it's not that you don't really care about the things that you're working on, but a lot of the times you feel like the client doesn't care, and it just all seems very pointless,
Useless. Yeah.
and that's why when we finally decided to become full-time game devs, that's sort of when you feel like everything clicked. And it's also because it followed, at least for me, and for Kami too, a series of not just professional frustrations, because that wasn't necessarily anyone's fault but ours, that we were doing something for work that we didn't really
It's
enjoy.
nobody's fault. It's just the way things are.
It just
sometimes.
happens. It just happens. But also, but for me, it was also the frustration of, for example, going to art school for so many years and just not being, just feeling like it doesn't help, and that people are very much out of touch and they don't understand what cartoons are. They don't understand what video games are. It's just, but I think it's a staple of this part of the world that we have a little bit of a, Eastern Europe has a pretty significant delay. As
God, yes.
Western Europe. Yeah.
I'm not telling anyone what I'm doing. It just ends up with big eyes staring at me and what are you saying?
Don't understand, right?
Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing. And it's weird because if you stop and think about it, I mean, it's like video games are the biggest entertainment industry out there. Like they're bigger than movies and music put together.
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird that some governments like ours just don't realize just that how strategically important, supporting this field is. And it's also we're starting to have, we have this, it's a thing called RGDA, which is it's like an association of Romanian game developers, and they're really doing their best, and they're lobbying, the government to provide us with grants and stuff, and they make, they're trying to make things happen, but bureaucracy, it's not easy.
It's not that time yet. There's still, I'm judging by my country. There's still a lot of well, I'm not young, but there's oldish people who think that the game at best is Super Mario, and that's it.
It's that whole thing of trying to convince people that games are art, and I don't understand how difficult that is to understand, because if you accept that, and I think most people accept that movies and animations are art, all you're doing is adding interactivity to that.
And writing is art.
Yeah, right.
Everything is art.
And I think it should be easier to accept, because for example, if you think about when photography appeared as opposed to painting, that should have been a lot harder to accept as art, because it was just like a machine doing everything for you instead of a person painting.
Yeah, that was a huge struggle there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But with games, it's a lot of a lot of different forms of art combined into one. So how the hell is that not art? I think that's like saying that cinema is not art because Transformers is a bad movie.
Yep, exactly.
They're just judging everything based on Call of Duty or Mario, and even that is art. Like even Call of Duty is art. It's not good. I wouldn't call them artistic masterpieces, but still, there's so many talented people that are working on them. And some games are more commercial, some games are less, but that doesn't make them any less a work of art.
Sure. All right, man. It's been an hour, and
it's been fun. I talked your ears off. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I want to congratulate you again with 100,000 as we speak, even more probably, and make it 2.
Let's hope so. I don't know. Yeah, everything went so much better than we had expected. Right now we're right in the middle of the campaign where things slow down a little bit, and this is where I need to get a lot of caffeine in me and try to get everyone even more excited about the campaign. It's a little bit of For someone who's I'm sort of an introvert, so doing all these things, even if they're virtual, it's a little bit tiresome for me and very emotionally exhausting. But if it helps make the game happen, I mean, we're genuinely excited and stuff. It's just I know that once the campaign ends, I'm probably gonna do nothing for a week. Just
rehab. Yes, of course.
yes, exactly. Hey, thanks for the conversation. I really had fun.
Thank you, man. Well, that's it. Thank you for stick by and live with my many ers. I will try to get rid of them soon, sooner than later. Better be soon. I hope you enjoyed it, and you're very welcome to check out all the links in the description and back the Near-Mage. And see you soon. Thank you.